Councillor Wong-Tam.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, I want to have a better understanding about the motion that you have here and about accessibility. And this is something that I know that you care a lot about, and we've had numerous conversations on how to ensure that we have a transportation network that is more accessible. And there were a series of recommendations that came out of the committee regarding the vehicle for hire and the accessibility strategy. Your motion now removes those committee recommendations, does it not? Because I don't see them anymore. Are they now struck out?
Well, what you have here is the requirements that are starting right on page 1.
Yes, I see that.
But I mean, some of the requirements, yes, that had us moving, I think, in a relatively short period of time to 100% accessible taxis are no longer in the staff recommended. They weren't recommended by the staff, nor have they been included in this motion.
So I just want to understand. So what we've now struck out is also the committee recommendation to at least try to waive the license application renewal fees for accessible taxi cab licenses. That would have brought them back to January 1st, 2016. That was retroactive. We were supposed to try to give those drivers some relief because of the fact that these larger vehicles, these accessible cabs, are larger. They're obviously more expensive because they've been retrofitted, but they're also more expensive to maintain, more expensive to operate, and not necessarily with a greater number of drivers. That's now removed. Is that correct?
I apologize for the fact that I didn't read that in here, but I think I read, and now I'm having, looking for the provision that also provides for the means by which we would look at having some sort of a self-financing, way of making it possible for us to have a higher degree of accessibility of these vehicles, and I support that kind of initiative. But these are not, I will certainly admit to you, without being able to put my finger on what you just asked about, these are not the same recommendations that were in place as part of the 2014 reforms. That is true.
So I'm going to assume that they're no longer there because I don't see them. Those accessibility strategy that was brought forward by the committee has been struck out. So I want to get some clarity on page 1. So this you don't have to go too far for. According to the motion here, as you placed before us, the private transport.
Councillor, excuse me, Madam Speaker, I just can't hear.
You hold my time, please.
I know.
There's a lot of hubbub in the room, and I can't.
And I've said it. Members of the public, members of council, staff that are sitting behind the mayor, members of council. It's hard to hear the mayor when the councillor is asking the question. Please try to keep it down. Okay.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. With respect to the PTCs, once they hit the number 500, then they are then bound to provide accessible service. Is that correct? That's the way I read it.
Yes, and not only accessible service, but meet the equivalent service standard that is set out in the paragraphs below.
And so a PTC having more than 500 vehicles, Uber X, Uber Assist, Uber Wave, Uber, is that one company? One transportation company, or is that 4?
That's a very, very valid question, and it was asked, I think one of the first questions I was asked by Councillor Carroll was about whether they could divide themselves up into multiple companies to try and escape this. I can certainly tell you I would be more than happy to undertake that we would work with our lawyers to make sure they can't do that, because the objective here is when you get to a certain critical mass as a PTC that you are going to provide this service, no ifs, ands, or buts, and that you're going to provide it on the equivalent service basis as set out here, and not that you could evade it by setting up multiple companies.
So we're going to need to tighten that then, because I think if we want to ensure that we aren't accidentally creating loopholes, we want to close that. Mr. Mayor, I just want to understand the last page. So I went from page 1 now to page 20 of your motion. With respect to establishing this transition fund for taxi cab plate owners whose investments have been negatively impacted by new market entrants. When do you expect this report to come back? I don't see a report back date.
Actually, there was a bit of discussion you might have missed because it would have been easy to a little earlier on, because it was one of those discussions that involved Ms. Cook kind of off the record. And when we asked her would she be satisfied with a date that Councillor Mammoliti suggested for the 2 reports in A and B of not later than September, Ms. Cook said she would be satisfied with that. And so the answer to your question is we would have that report not later than September.
So thank you. And so is my understanding correct that we are now going to remove any caps on taxi cab licenses and plate owners. So that's now gone. And we're still asking staff to report back on creating a transition fund or some type of payment structure for the unlimited number of taxi cab licenses and plate owners that we're creating, that one day we may pay them out of this transition fund that you've now asking staff to set up.
But,
Is that correct?
Councillor Wong-Tam, through the Speaker, I previously said I was a bit skeptical about this one. I'm not skeptical about the fact we could have a report, but I'm skeptical about the principle that's involved. You've just made one of the arguments one might make to whoever's authoring this report, I assume Ms. Cook and her staff, as to why such a fund is not feasible. But I understand why it's being asked for. I understand why it's being asked for, in the sense that people bought a plate at a certain amount and now it's going to be worth less, and it is worth less. I get that, but in many other areas of life, and the reason I'm skeptical, you don't have anybody backing you up when you buy something and it ends up worth less because of the operation of the marketplace or because of technology. So the report will be written, and I don't mean to prejudge its contents. I won't be writing it. I'll just be awaiting its results like you will, and it'll be here in September, and we'll see what it says, but I think your argument is one certainly that the author would be well advised to take into account.
Okay, thank you. That was your last question. And that's it. Councillor Wong-Tam.
Thank you very much,
Well,
ma'am.
where's your name? Your name's not there.
Yeah, it is.
Can you
I
please
don't-
stop my time?
What's the
I don't have anything on my screen.
It's fine.
Oh, okay, Councillor de Bermaker, your name's there now. Councillor de Bermaker?
I don't mind. Councillor Wong-Tam is up to speak. I don't mind her going first. I'll speak next. I'm happy to do that. I just didn't
Okay.
want you to forget me.
No, it wasn't on my list. I don't know what's happening. Okay, Councillor Wong-Tam, you're on my list now.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I walked into the chambers today knowing that there were certain colleagues from the both sides, all sides of council, that were working long hours over the past 10 days trying to find a resolution. And I recognize that there were a lot of people who were invested in those negotiations because we wanted to have an outcome that we can all support. And I recognize that there were people in the council chambers that said that they wanted to work to a resolution because they believed in having one system, one set of regulation, one set of rules to govern the ground transportation network that we were trying to regulate, to create that fair and equitable condition. Now, when I left for lunch, I believe that we had a package because there was a meeting of the minds and there was goodwill coming together to negotiate this. After lunch, I come back and all bets are off. The mayor has now come forward with a motion. It's 20 pages long, and apparently it deviates quite a bit from what was also put on the table from another side of council chambers. And everyone who has been in the hallways of City Council, in talking to members of City Council, speaking to the mayor staff, I think we all knew, leading up to this day, to this moment, that we were trying to come to a resolution. And I was asked to not support a receipt motion. Because don't worry, Councillor, we're going to work with all sides to make sure we have a good package that everyone could support. Now, I'm looking at a motion put forward by the mayor that actually takes away a lot of the things that we said that we wanted to do, which is to make the system safer, to regulate it so it's fairer. So we talk about consumer protection. We talked about taking surge pricing off. We talked about building more accessibility, not less accessibility. We talked about making sure that the regulations were going to work for everyone. We talked about making sure that there was adequate training, city-run training. All of this was being negotiated. And I have it here, about 4 pages, all point notes, all point form of how it's going to work. And now that's gone. And now I have 20 pages that tells me that those negotiations are completely off the table, unilaterally. So I recognize what I'm saying is probably going to be sitting uncomfortably, and I apologize if it's uncomfortable to you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to speak through you, Madam Chair, but I'm really disappointed because I know that people worked really hard over the weekend. They were in this building trying to find a resolution, and now that's gone. So I'm now forced to adopt a receipt motion, which is unfortunate because I thought we were working together. And I'm going to be forced to vote against the mayor's motion because it doesn't do the things that I want it to do, which is to expand accessibility, to make it safer, to eliminate surge pricing, and to go back to a system where we are actually commodifying the plates again. I've only been here for 6.5 years, but I certainly know that during the 6.5 years, there was a lot of effort trying to eliminate and trying to eliminate the commodification of those plates so we can get to a place where if you were a driver, you're an operator, you become a plate owner at one point in time. That's where we're heading to, and I thought that was a good place. And it's not about technology, folks. I personally don't think it's about technology, because we've already established every single person has access to the technology. Every single cab company out there has access to their own platform. It's not about technology. It's about creating that fair playing system, that fair regulation, and now we don't have that. Like getting to the point of where we're negotiating snow tires, I thought we'd move beyond that. We're now negotiating item by item, motion by motion of how we're going to make this a safer system. We're actually asking this new standard of companies, this PTC as it's called, to now self-regulate. You are supposed to collect all the paperwork on behalf of all your drivers and submit it electronically. And that includes all training, certification, all criminal background check, all vehicle inspection, all commercial insurance, the age of the car, the fee structure. Everything is supposed to be like all controlled by this company that's going to somehow magically be deposited in electronic format for the staff to then review and correlate. We have enough enforcement issues that we don't have enough enforcement officers. So we're actually creating a system that I think is going to become worse. And unfortunately, this is now regulating and formalizing the gig economy.
Thank you.
It is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wong-Tam.